update on voter attitudes and trends. My name is Jake Cashion, and I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the North Carolina Chamber. Thank you for joining us today. A few housekeeping items before we hear from our speaker today. All attendees are muted to avoid any distractions during today's presentation. If time permits, we will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. If you would like to submit a question during the meeting, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Today's session will be recorded and all slides shared with you in a recap email that's sent after this event. I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, Pat McFerron. Pat is the president of Cole Hargrave Snodgrass and Associates and is nationally known for his polling and focus group work for corporations and political campaigns. He has conducted research for many successful marketing efforts and political campaigns with clients ranging from Fortune 50 companies to presidential, U.S. Senate, congressional, gubernatorial, and statewide campaigns. The official pollster of the National Association of State Chambers, McFerron is a veteran focus group moderator who has directed more than 1,000 specific research projects in 41 states. In addition to being president of CHS, Pat is a founding partner of CMA Strategies, Oklahoma's leading political campaign consulting and lobbying firm. He is William Randolph Hearst Scholar, who graduated summa cum laude from Oklahoma City University and attended graduate school at the American University. Pat, we thank you for joining us today. This virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Jake, and thank you to all of the groups that have worked together to put this study to bring it to light. The study was conducted in the middle of March, so not that long ago here, and it does follow up a little bit on a study that we had done in 2024, and so you'll see some comparisons there. I want to be very clear, this is a study of voters, not a study of residents or citizens, and so we've based the study based on what we'd expect turnout to be in an election year like we're seeing coming up in 2026. You can see the age breakdown there, about a third over the age of 65. You can see the income there with about a third in households making more than $100,000 a year. See the gender breakdown, it skews just a little female. We do most of this through live agents, but we did have 26% of the interviews conducted text to web, and you can see the racial breakdown there as well. 45% of these folks have not participated in a primary election. We did have a requirement that they were either newly registered since the November 2024 election or participated in that. And so you can see those numbers there. That's why the general election vote history, they've all participated in at least one of the last 5. And the party registration is pretty even between the 3, and that's our current model that we're looking at. I know there are some that have the Republican number up a little bit higher, and so maybe there's a point or two difference there. We asked a few basic questions about the respondents' relationship to being a victim. 59% say they have not been a victim. We do have 18% that say they have been a victim of violent crime, because that 7% can be added to that 11, and then 28% that say they've been a victim of a nonviolent crime. And you can see that about 43% of that has happened within the last 5 years. I will tell you that we looked at this really as a crosstab, but only in a very few places did we see that it made much of a difference in what their opinion was on criminal justice reform issues. We also asked how safe they felt in their community. The key thing here is that I think that 92% feel at least somewhat safe, 55% feeling very safe. Democrats a little more likely to feel safe than Republicans, but still very few say they're not safe at all. That's 2%, 5% among the Republicans. The increase in not feeling safe is a little bit higher among those over the age of 65, but it's more minor than I see in some states. There is a stronger correlation really between very safe and somewhat safe. You see kind of the red line, the line between the red and the blue boxes there with income. Geographic regions, we do control to make sure that the study reflects the state. We use the geographic regions for that. And then you can see the bottom is kind of the media markets, and we'll see some crosstabs from that. A base question I've been asking for about 6 years in North Carolina is, compared to the national economy, do you think the North Carolina economy is going in the right direction, or has it got off on the wrong track? And you can see we're at 51 wrong track, 37 right track. It has been upside down since 2021, where we've had more saying wrong track, but it's been fairly consistent the last 3 years. Republicans are more optimistic than our Democrats, who are the most negative here. You see women being a little more negative as well. Only among those in the households making more than $150,000 a year do we see a positive attitude about the direction of the economy. We also then looked at the political environment here, and these are the folks we looked at, their favorable ratings here. You can see the governor at a 49 to 15, former Governor Roy Cooper at a 50 to 28, AG Jeff Jackson at 26 to 7, Trump upside down, and Tillis upside down as well. We'll look at each of these a little bit individually here. The Trump numbers, his favorable is down a little bit from what we saw last May, but he's been right around that 50%, 51% negative for quite some time in North Carolina. Democrats and Republicans are mirror images of each other here. And he does have a gender gap in North Carolina, just as people see across the country. Looking at Stein, his favorable numbers have continued to increase. And the fact that his unfavorable decrease during the campaign is a little bit different than what we tend to see, but I think a pretty unique nature of the race that he had is resulting in that. He's a 13 to 1 among Democrats, just a little less than a 1 to 1 among Republicans. In this hyper-partisan environment, I would expect his numbers to close over time, and you'll see that Republican negative grow. But right now, he's close to breaking even there and has really good numbers among unaffiliated voters. Jeff Jackson, not as well known, 54% of having never heard of him, but we still see that same kind of a ratio when we looked at. Look at Tom Tillis here. He does have room to grow among Republicans. When you're not on the ballot, he fades away a little bit, 37% having no opinion. He's actually more defined among Democrats than he is among Republicans, with 64% having an opinion of him. Only 50% of Republicans have an opinion of him. He is upside down among those over 65, but his numbers do improve, you can see here. And his numbers do really drop among that over 150,000 household crowd. Look at the former governor. He is negative among Republicans, 19 to 57. This is one reason why I said I expect Stein's numbers to become negative here among Republicans. This is naturally what will happen when you're in office, although the Democrat numbers have gotten stronger for Cooper, and they probably will for Stein as well. His real strength is how well he does among those unaffiliated voters. Better than a 2 to 1 there, better than 2.5 to 1. Looking at the generic ballot, this is a question where we just ask, if the election for General Assembly were held today, would you be voting for the Republican candidate or the Democrat candidate? We see a 7-point Democrat advantage right now. It's tracking with what I'm seeing in some other places across the country where places are 7-8 points behind where they were in the summer of 24 on this generic ballot here. Republicans are falling down there a little bit. You see it's similar to what we had in July of 20. Unaffiliated voters right now are breaking pretty decisively Democrat. It's still less than half. It's 33 to 49. And Democrats are just a little bit more united than Republicans are. We do have a very substantial gender gap. Republicans are +8 among men, but a -20 among women. Those under 55 really provide Democrats with their edge. From 55 to 74, it's even, and then Republicans have an advantage among those voters over 75. Democrats are now over 50% among upper income groups. That is a pretty seismic change from what we saw 15, 20 years ago. But it's part of the realignment we're seeing between Republicans and Democrats nationally, especially, I think most people talk about it along education lines, but it's reflected in income lines as well. So that's the political environment that we're looking at. Now we'll get into some questions asked about criminal justice system and criminal justice reform. You can see this is approval of the criminal justice system. I want to be very clear. This is about the system, not about reform. We have 53% that approve of it, 33% that disapprove. That is a little narrower than we saw last year. That deterioration has come among Democrats, whose faith in the system has gone from 58-33 to 49-36, while the Republican number has changed very little, from 57 approved, 31 disapproved, to 57-28. So the approval number hasn't changed, but the disapproval has. Also pointing out that only 14% strongly approve. Most of that's in the somewhat approve. This is far from a ringing endorsement of the system. So that's why I think we'll see in a minute here why there is so much support for reform. There is a little bit of a correlation. Those who feel very safe or not safe at all are actually the ones most supportive. So it's not really a direct correlation there. Just wanted to point that out. Those who are not safe at all tend to want to have a little bit harsher penalties for criminals. Those who are very safe aren't experiencing problems on a day-to-day basis, so it must be working okay. Those who have been a victim of a crime are the least supportive of the system. And so clearly the system's not working for those victims the way it is now. So we asked, do you favor? We don't define criminal justice reform in this question. We just ask if you favor or oppose it. So it's each respondent defining it in their own way. And it's very little change from May of 24, from 69-13 to 71-14. The positive movements among Republicans, it's gone from 49-22 to 66-19. The Democrat numbers come down a little bit. So, some of that on the smaller cell sizes is going to be margin of error, but clearly there's a little bit of movement there on Republicans. There is a little bit of an age line, but it's not as stark as it was last year. We now have 66% of those over 65 saying they support criminal justice reform, and there's really not much of a correlation with income at all. And again, this might be inverse of what people expect. Those feeling the least safe are the least supportive of CJR. And again, I think it's because there's a view that CJR is being soft on crime. And so if you're not feeling safe, now still you have 55% that are supportive, but it's just a 2-to-1 ratio versus the 5-to-1 ratio we see among those feeling safe, or even 6-to-1 on somewhat safe. Again, the relation between being a victim doesn't really correlate. So we did ask a new fundamental question, and I really like this question, and so I'll read it actually to you. It is, which of the following statements comes closest to your opinion? The best way to keep our communities safe is to invest in policing and increase jail and prison sentences for people who break the law. That's supported by 34%. And then 59% prefer the statement, the best way to keep our communities safe is to invest in prevention and increase funding for programs such as affordable housing, job training, and drug and mental health treatment. Here's the real challenge, is the Republicans are substantially different than the general electorate on this. 64-27 versus 34-59. Democrats very unified, unaffiliated voters rank 2-to-1 toward the prevention side. All age groups have a majority on prevention, but you see those under 45 being the strongest here. We also see the support spike among upper income. Even among those who say they support the criminal justice system, we have a majority saying invest in prevention. Those who oppose the system are even stronger in supporting prevention. There is a correlation here. If you oppose criminal justice reform, you tend to want to have more policing. If you support it, you tend to want prevention. But it's quite frankly, It's not as strong a correlation as I expected to see, which tells me that criminal justice reform is not fully defined, and that that there is still room to grow on that side. So we gave folks 4 reasons to support criminal justice reform. We asked them which was most convincing. Take out the 20% first that say none of these are convincing. Those are going to be your hardcore opponents. But you do see we have some other messages that work well. Ending the crime cycle. Don't throw someone into a financial spiral for a small debt or a small mistake. 18% say it's because our economy needs workers, and 7% says it's too costly to taxpayers. So I really think the too costly to taxpayers message, I don't really see it pop many places. So I don't know that I would spend much time on that messaging point. I will say that for Democrats in particular, you see the don't cause folks to go into a financial spiral message really resonating. And so I think that's a place to look. And just so you know, that statement, it is wrong to send a person or a family into a financial spiral due to a small mistake. The other 23%, the end of the crime cycle, is labeled here, is when you take away the ability to drive, you jeopardize their jobs, it can lead to future criminal activity. And so these are the reasons to enact criminal justice reforms, like ending debt-based driver's license suspension, expunging records for qualified individuals. And so there are some places to use different messages here a little bit, but really I'd focus on the 3, not talk about the cost of taxpayers very much unless you have a specific legislator or something, but it's not a public message. Age and income are rather small. Those under 45 are really concerned about the spiral effect. 45% of those who say they strongly oppose criminal justice reform find one of these messages resonating. And so to me, again, it's an indication that defining what criminal justice reform, clearly they don't see ending debt-based driver's license suspension or expunging records of qualified individuals as being CJR. And so I think there's an opportunity to grow the coalition there. So the next area, before we get into the specific individual reforms, we did ask the respondents to tell us who's most responsible for crime in your community, which of these is the most responsible. And we gave probably too many choices here, candidly, as we designed this together. But I still think it's illustrative of where differences are. The number one reason was the deterioration of the family. And then it's the lack of access to mental health or substance abuse disorder treatment. Then we get into too many guns on the street, lack of jobs, inequality, education. Notice that only 3% say it's because too many are released from prison. Only 7% say it's because there's not enough police on the streets. There are real differences between Republicans and Democrats on this. You can see among Republicans, 38% say that it's about the deterioration of the family, and we see 11% tying for the second spot being not enough police on the street. Or Democrats, their focus tends to be on mental health or substance abuse treatment, guns, and then the systemic racial inequality. Looking at ages here, you do see that the guns number pops a little bit among those over 65. And the systemic racial inequality is really relegated to primarily those under 45 years of age. That's also the group most likely to see the lack of affordable housing. That really declines as you get older as well, as far as you're concerned there. Those undecided on if they support or oppose criminal justice reform, you can see 32% here talk about the deterioration of the family. So I really do think developing messages that say, hey, by letting folks have their driver's license, they're able to take care of their family. I think that kind of messaging, how these reforms help the family unit stay together, can be very, very persuasive as you work through this. And you see it again among those who are undecided on the generic legislative ballot, 31%. So it's not that it just helps among the Republicans, it helps among this key swing voting group as well to deliver that this CJR is about keeping the families together. I think is a message that really could resonate in this environment. So we looked at a lot of different reforms. Some of these were asked of half the sample. We get to the camp questions in particular. But they're just, I mean, these are just incredibly positive, strong reforms. Question 20 is more of a just really kind of a concept question. Do you support or oppose court-approved summer camps and/or mentoring programs as alternative sentences for juveniles convicted of low-level or nonviolent crimes? 92-5, incredible number. Question 19 here. In North Carolina, 85% of missed court dates are for traffic-related issues like expired tags, speeding, or broken taillights. When someone misses a court date, they can have their driver's license suspended, even if they fix the original issue. Would you support or oppose a reminder program that may include a text message, phone call, and email reminders to increase presence at court appearances? 91-5. We don't see many 80% issues, let alone 90% issues. And I'll show you here in a little bit how the parties are united here. Delving into the camps a little bit more, even if we tell people that the camps are going to cost money, when we say a taxpayer, would you favor, support, or oppose taxpayer investment in court-approved camps? Then we get to 88%. If we just have that same question, but we enumerate some of the actual crimes, including breaking into or stealing a car, shoplifting, or breaking and entering, we still have 87%. So I really think this combats any question about, hey, you're not talking about, people think juvenile crimes or other things. You're not talking about breaking and entering. Well, no. When we say breaking and entering or stealing a car, we still have 87% that support a taxpayer investment for camps for those juveniles. Question 17 here is saying that research from other states shows that allowing individuals convicted of drug-related offenses to access food stamps helps reduce repeat offenses and keeps communities safer. Would you support or oppose changing this the current policy to ensure that individuals serve their time have access to food assistance like everyone else? Very strong. If we talk about how the question before that had been about the 1990s, and if we would change that to allow those with drug offenses to qualify for food stamps after having their time. So you don't really even need to make the argument that lets them keep the job. I mean, it helps a little bit, but it's not much. And the message that violent offenders are eligible, but not drug offenders, it doesn't really help move the needle any. So I probably avoid doing that. We'll go into this in a little bit, but the First Step Act and mentioning Donald Trump changes the coalition quite a bit. And then the other question here was just, do you support providing temporary government assistance such as food assistance and basic health care to everyone who qualifies based on their financial situation, regardless of if they have previously been convicted of a drug offense? 72-20 there. But it's got that basic health care line in it, and it hasn't had some of the messages here about how it has been from the 90s and how it reduces recidivism. So that was a lot of time on one chart there. We'll show you here just a few other groups, show you how popular it is among key constituencies. Again, a group everyone should be interested in are those that are undecided on the generic ballot, those that are not picking a party. These are all really, really strong numbers. Even the First Step Act, which does, again, invoke Donald Trump, is a 60-18. Among those undecided on criminal justice reform, again, very, very strong numbers. And even on those that say, again, that they oppose criminal justice reform, these reforms are supported. So I do think that there's an ability to redefine criminal justice reform to get folks to support these messages. So looking at the First Step Act, it is the only one of these where Republicans are substantially more in favor than our Democrats. It's clearly Trump's name, which was used in this question, that he supported during his first term, makes those numbers very popular among Republicans. It causes a little bit of hesitancy among Democrats. For temporary assistance after a drug offense, you can see that this is where you have 85% of Democrats, a 20-point advantage among Republicans. So there's a partisan gap, but even a solid majority of Republicans support this. You can see even those, again, that oppose criminal justice reform are supportive. If we want to address the 1990s ban to change that, Republican support goes to a plus 45. The Democrat support's at a stratospheric 90%, but still very, very strong. If you use the message that it stops a return to crime, The Republican number goes up a little bit more to 71, just 1 point from 70. The Democrat number goes up. So you don't really even need to make this mess. So I want to point out that's 58% strongly support. Just the change of the permanent ban is 52. So it does have a little bit of reach for the intensity. And so what I would say is it's giving this food stamp access leads to decreased recidivism and a better ability to take care of your family and to keep the family union in place. Excuse me there. Let me pull my Marco Rubio water drink there. Food stamps for drug offenses, given that violent criminals have it. It's a 54. It's a fine message. I just don't know that you need to go here. And I think the other messages work just as well. The reminder program, I don't know that I've ever seen 86% of Republicans and 95% of Democrats agree on anything in the last 8 or 10 years. Just does not happen very often. And this have 78% strongly support. This is a very, very strong number. Again, 91%. And it's across the board. Even those that say they strongly oppose criminal justice reform, 78% say they support it. Similar numbers for the camps. Again, here we have 90% of Republicans, 94% of Democrats. Just incredibly strong numbers. So I'm going to just scroll through these here a little bit quick in the interest of a little bit of time here. Again, when we talk about taxpayer and investment, to me, this is an even stronger message. We didn't put an exact dollar figure on it. We did say, should the taxpayers make an investment in these camps? Not only is it 88% strongly support, it's 88% support, it's 64% strongly support, and it's an 81-14 among Republicans. Again, very, very strong numbers here. And even if we talk about the specific crimes, the strongly support does go down from 64 to 56, but we're still at 87% support. Very little difference between Republicans and Democrats, even if they're among the half of the sample that had the specific crimes read to them. And then this question is, just a more brought out, what's the effect of all these issues? Now I want to be very clear. This was asked after they'd heard what we were talking about with criminal justice reform. So after ending, debt-based driver's license, the camps, the first step, the food stamps to those with drug offenses. So we've essentially defined criminal justice reform a little bit more to them. And we get to 77% saying they would vote for a candidate who supports criminal justice reform. Only 14% said they would vote against that person. I want to be clear here. This is not, does not have the intensity we see on issues like abortion or guns or other things. But still, 58% probably. This is a place where any candidate should want to be, especially when the definitely side is a 5-1 advantage. You're not upsetting folks on the other side here. And in Republicans, it's better than a 3-1 winning issue, even among those who vote in Republican primaries. Strong support across all age and income groups, especially those earning less than $50,000 a year. And again, even those that claim to oppose criminal justice reform, by the time they're re-educated about what criminal justice reform is, we see very positive numbers here at 59-41. And it doesn't matter where you are politically. If you're a Tillis fan, a Cooper fan, undecided there. If you like Trump, if you dislike Trump, if you like Stein, or you dislike Stein, we still see at least 60% support among all of these advocates. So it is a uniting. It can be an incredible general election message point, but it certainly does not harm you in any kind of primary either. And here you can see it among those voting for a generic Republican, 67-24 plus 43. Democrats, any Democrat not supportive of these reforms, is really at risk. These are really strong numbers. But if you're in a competitive seat, at 71-11 among generic, that's one of the things political consultants look for, are numbers that are that strong. Especially if if you're a Republican in a competitive seat, it's a way to really reach across and do more. So I know that was a lot of things there, a lot of information, short amount of time. I probably spoke too fast. Forgive me about that. let me know. I'm going to leave my share screen up for a little bit in case people have questions, if we're going to open them up for that, Jake or Mike. And I'll take your lead now.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Mike Rusher here. I'll be leading the Q&A. I'll just open up as y'all are thinking of some questions to ask. Please use the Q&A box. It should be the second box from your left. The one on the far right is the leave button, so hopefully you don't press that one. But if anything piqued your interest during the presentation and you'd like to see a slide again, let us know. Pat can put it up there. While you're thinking of things to pop into the Q&A box, do not use the chat box, use the Q&A box. I'll just say it's just an honor to be with you guys here again, alongside Pat McFerron, CHS, and Jake Cashion as well, and the Chamber team. You know, my company, the Results Company, we've been working with the North Carolina Chamber for several years now on a variety of projects, from issue polling like this to political strategy and special projects. Everything in between. Also, special thanks to North Carolina Chamber and the partnership that was formed with Tara Callahan and Conservatives for Criminal Justice Reform. They go by CCJR. That's a group that was formed back in 2016 on criminal justice reform issues. I'll just drop a name plug for Tara Callahan. She's the executive director of that entity, and I'll drop her contact information into the chat box here for all to see. If you have specific questions on issues that Tara's group is working on, I encourage you to reach out to her. Obviously, you know how to get a hold of the Chamber. You're on this webinar. Jake, if you'd like, I'll provide your cell phone number to all attendees. Now, I'm kidding. I won't do that to you. They probably all have it anyways. So, but yeah, so use that Q&A box. We'll see a couple questions coming in, and we'll officially shift over. All right, Mr. Gronberg, welcome from Business NC, is wondering what the Chamber is going to do with this data and its objectives regarding criminal justice reform.
Mike, I'll take that. Thank you, Mr. Grunberg. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're just using it right now to elevate the issues and really highlight the fact that you know, keeping families together is a positive thing for folks and those that live in communities, and making sure that, you know, they can get and keep a job, and really important to just elevate this issue and these issues in general. Because at some point in time, we think hopefully there'll be some legislative changes that'll be positive to help keep folks working.
Yeah, thanks, Jake.
I might just add, if it's okay, a little bit here. I know that I've done some other work with the Chamber, and I don't know if you've released any of your CEO polls at any time, but I know that it continues to be workforce development being one of the top concerns the Chamber has. And so I flipped back. I hope you can still see this, but you can see we do have 18% of the population that thinks that one of the reasons to do criminal justice reform is because of the need for workers. And to me, that's I won't speak for the Chamber, but to me, that's a very important reason that a lot of businesses in other states and other places are supportive of some of these criminal justice reforms to get that workforce back online, that available workforce back in place.
Well said, Pat. Another piece I'd like to focus on, you know, we're not that many months away from candidate filing in December. And, you know, we've got a couple political aspects to this poll I'd like to frame out a little bit more if folks are thinking of more questions. You know, there's no way around it. I think 2026 is shaping up to be a difficult year for Republicans. I say that for several reasons based on the data Pat just presented. We've got, you know, the statewide unfaves that we went through with 5 different candidates. 2 of them were Republicans, 3 were Democrats. One was the president. One is a Republican president, obviously. The other is a Republican United States senator. What we saw was Republicans are underwater significantly, and the statewide Democratic figures are, seeing major positives. The less of those will be Jeff Jackson, just because he's a little bit lesser known compared to Roy Cooper and Governor Josh Stein. But 26 is going to be shaping up to be a difficult year for Republicans based on the data that we're seeing. The second reason why I would say that is because the generic ballot for the General Assembly, when we ask folks if the election for the legislature were held today, would you vote for a Republican or Democrat in your district? That has flipped from just a year ago, where Republicans, Pat's poll that we did a year ago, Republicans were enjoying a 6 percentage point advantage over Democrats, and now they're 7 points behind Democrats. Just, I guess, a little less than a year later, post-election. And then the third thing is just a slight slip in the North Carolina right track versus wrong track. It's only about 2 percentage points, but confidence in the direction of the state has slipped just a little bit, and that could certainly play into a 2026 argument for incumbents trying to hold their seats. Got a couple more questions. I think we can sum up the second one. Jake, this one probably be for you, but criminal justice reform going to be a chamber priority, just like child care, was the question.
Yes, thank you for the question. These issues are on our 2025 legislative agenda, and we do anticipate those being on future legislative agendas, depending on what we can get accomplished in any session. But yes, efforts like this to raise the level of importance, I think, is where we're at right now. And showcasing the real important issues around this, I think, can get us to the point of having a larger coalition in due time.
Right. We'll go to Ray Gromberg. Another question. Reporter with Business NC is asked, is 7 points on the generic ballot enough to overcome Republicans' gerrymandering advantage in the districts? Ray, to that question, I would say, being this early on, each district is a very individual case and battle, if you will. I think it's really difficult to apply like a statewide generic ballot to an individual legislative district. So really, it's going to come down to how many competitive seats they are. I think your question could be better asked at the end of December after candidate filing is closed. And happy to chat more about that. You got my email. John Goodman, Electrolux. What level of confidence do you have in Trump and Tillis polling numbers, understanding that polling was off in 20 and 24? And the Trump numbers will likely drive the Tillis numbers. I think the political science major in me, naturally we've got a pendulum that swings back in politics. Midterm election for a sitting president is historically challenging for his party. This case could be unique, as there's no re-election coming for the sitting president in 2028. So this midterm, it could be a lot worse, or it could be, a little bit better than we've traditionally seen. And a lot of that's going to ride on the economy. Jobs and economy is going to continue to drive the day here. And I think it's also interesting, and Pat, you clean this up for me if you need to, but a lot of the way that people are viewing some of these criminal justice reform policies, and what I would say is the chamber's interest in this, is the impact to the economy. Some of the questions that were coming up, especially on ending debt-based driver's license, basically taking away driver's licenses over fines and fees being owed. The issues that rule the day on overturning that policy are allowing those people to get back to work, either to become contributing members of society or the risk of them losing their job over $150, $200 fine. So they won't be able to contribute to the economy, hold a job, provide for their family. So we do see that economic issue bleeding into many other areas, this one included.
If I could just, I don't really need to do anything else on that, Mike, but just on that question, and it's one, I will say that the last poll that I had done in North Carolina had Trump up 2 points when he wins by 3. And in 2020, we had Trump and Tillis both up by 1 point, I think, during those election cycles. So I feel pretty comfortable in it, but there's a long way to go. Things will change dramatically here. And I do think the Tillis numbers, when I look at this, I do think they can change.
Yeah. All right, we've got another question about it's my experience in the GA that lawmakers support concepts but do not prioritize or support the issues when they are framed as criminal justice issues. Any thoughts about framing? Pat, if you could pull up the slide on attitudes that respondents take when it's time to elect their General Assembly member.
I'm not sure I know which one you're talking about. We didn't really have an open-ended on that.
This was if a candidate was supporting criminal
okay.
issues,
Yep.
would you be more or less likely to vote for them?
Yep, it's very, very strong here. One of the lines I would put there is I do think from this survey, one of the message points that probably needs to be further developed, especially among Republican members of the GA, is about how this is about long-term keeping families together, and it's a vote to do what it can to stop the deterioration of the family, which is their top reason for why they believe crime exists. And so while I do think that there's some value in talking about the economic benefits and getting people into the workforce, when I look at this and what they'd hear on the doorstep and what they'd be able to tell folks on the doorstep, is that this vote is about allowing people to provide for their families, to keep their families together, I think is the winning message there.
Yeah, and I would say too, I'll drop a plug for Tara as well. I think an interesting tidbit here. Not only are voters willing to shift their vote one way or the other, but to reporter Ray Gromberg's question earlier, a little bit anyways, you know, an issue like this could very well come into play in some of these swing districts and tight races, you know, reaching voters in the middle on criminal justice reform specifically. CCJR, Tara Callahan's group, you know, was involved in the 2024 elections, and she might be able to provide a little bit more color if folks would like to reach out to her about that. But every little bit counts, especially when we're talking about majorities or supermajority, breaking the majority or supermajority as well. So. Scott Saylor asks, Pat, this might be background for you. Have there been any significant polling shifts in immigration or deportation issues recently with regard to workforce?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen anything.
I have not been in the field on immigration issues with any kind of substance in the last 3 or 4 months. So no, I just don't have any data on that.
Yeah. My friend Mr. Fain has a good one here. I think we're gonna have to dig in a little bit and probably circle back to you, Travis. But interested in that 85% that supported, I think that's criminal justice reform in general. What ideas like that already exist in North Carolina or should be expanded versus having bills filed already or perhaps introduced as new legislation? I'm not sure if we've got that broken down all the way in the slide that you've got.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was just, these are we've got all the These are the reforms that had at least 85% support. You can see the camps, the reminder program, and then just below that, the food stamp issues.
Yeah. Travis, we can probably clean that up if you want to reach out. I'm not sure we answered that.
Any others, Mike?
I was giving folks benefit of the doubt here. It looks like we're all wrapped up.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again, Pat, for joining us today. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We hope you found today's content valuable and hope to see you at a future NC Chamber event. Your input on these webinars is very important to help us bring you valuable content. Before you close out of today's webinar, please scan the QR code to access the survey. We appreciate you taking 2 minutes to give us feedback so that we can continue delivering programs that suit your needs. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to continuing to work on behalf of the business community, and thank you for all you do to keep North Carolina moving forward.